Today I thought I would do a video and a little bit of advice about sixth form and A-levels in general to anyone who is going into year 12. Quick rewind. Hi, my name's Isabella and I've just finished my A-levels. I was predicted A-star AA at the end of year 12 and I did biology, chemistry and maths, and I also did an EPQ in year 12 which I got an A in at the end. So this video would be super useful to anyone who is currently in their year 11 summer who is going into year 12 and potentially starting sixth form. I firstly just wanted to say that obviously I know that sixth form is about getting your A-levels, however do not miss the opportunities that sixth form can provide for you. I would say one of the best ways to book out your personal statement is definitely getting involved within your sixth form and being an active member of your sixth form or college, whether that is joining a club or if your sixth form offers societies, or if you could get involved in any leadership roles. For example, I was head student at my sixth form. It is definitely something that I talked about a lot in my personal statement, and I do feel as though it was an advantage when applying to universities. Universities elect to see other things other than just academics, so if you can find something that you are passionate about within sixth form that's not just your A-levels, that would definitely help your personal statement. Now I do also want to say I do know that they have changed the format for the personal statement this year, however it is basically the same stuff that you'll be writing anyway. It is just more structured, so any points that I do make about personal statements will be more related to how I wrote my personal statement. However, this can definitely be applicable to anyone who is doing the new format personal statement. It is generally the same points, but you are just writing it in different sections. So the first point that I want to touch on is choosing your subjects. Now, obviously, if you're watching this in the summer, you have probably already chosen your subjects if you had to fill in a form for your sixth form or college saying which subjects you wanted to do. Now, when you start sixth form, do not be afraid to switch your subjects. There will be an allocated period of time that your sixth form or college will give you where you can switch your subjects. And I always say, make sure that you are studying subjects that you are going to continue enjoying when it gets to year 13, because if you don't enjoy them, you're really going to struggle to revise them when it gets to year 13 and the pressure is actually on to revise them. If you already know what course you want to do at university, you probably already have an idea of the subjects that are required for that university or that course. If you don't, I would definitely recommend doing some research about what subjects your course or university requires. I would check on your university's website to see what subjects are required and advised for your course. Subjects such as medicine, biomed and other STEM related subjects often usually require you to have at least 2 science subjects. They usually give you a list of what they deem a science subject, and then they usually have a preferred specific subject, which is usually the subject that relates most to that course. For example, if you're doing biomed, it would usually be biology, or biochemistry, it would be chemistry. If you don't know what you want to study at university, this is definitely the thing to think about the most, what you enjoy. Now, obviously, if you don't know what you want to do at university, you're not going to have somewhere to research what subjects you need. A way that you can do a little bit of research throughout summer is going to open days, researching on universities' websites and kind of getting a feel for what you enjoy, and this could also help you pick what course you want to do later on at uni. Now, a lot of people throw around the term facilitating subject, but what does it actually mean? A facilitating subject is a subject that is highly valued by universities and can keep a wide variety of degree options open for you. So for example, some of these subjects could include chemistry, maths and even a humanities such as geography or history. My biggest advice when it comes to picking a facilitating subject is only pick this subject if you are genuinely passionate about it and you enjoy it. For example, I know a lot of people who chose maths A-level because they thought it would be a filler subject, a facilitating subject, and it would help them get into whatever course they were doing. Further down the line, if they don't enjoy maths, they're really going to struggle to revise it, and because maths is such an application subject, it is so hard to revise if you genuinely don't have that passion for it, and that can be applied to a lot of other subjects as well. But when I picked my subjects, it was kind of a no-brainer on what subjects I was going to do because I already knew what course I wanted to do at uni. I knew that these subjects would help me get into uni, and also they all link, so maths did help in biology and chemistry, and biology helped in chemistry and vice versa. So to sum up that section, pick subjects that you enjoy and remember that you are allowed to switch your subjects at the start, especially if you're not enjoying them or they're not what you expected. Now the next point that I want to touch on is the transition from year 11 to year 12. Now a lot of people do talk about this, and a lot of people say that the jump from year 11 to year 12 is not as bad as the jump from year 12 to year 13, and they are absolutely correct. They are absolutely correct. As somebody who has gone through both, I can 100% say, in my opinion, that the jump from year 11 to year 12 is definitely not as bad as the jump from year 12 to year 13, and that is because the transition that they give you from year 11 to year 12. A lot of subjects do also continue on from GCSE. For example, in biology and chemistry, the first module that we did was foundations in biology or foundations in chemistry, which gave us the basics of the A level. I would also encourage going out of your comfort zone when you start year 12. Even if you are staying at the same school that you did high school in, I would recommend branching out and trying to meet new people, because guaranteed there will be some new people at your sixth form. And I definitely found that I made a lot of new friendships, even though I had been to the school for 5 years already. I don't really have a lot to say about the transition, but I just kind of wanted to make you aware that the transition from year 11 to year 12 really isn't that bad. And as long as you do any required things that they set you over summer and just go in with an open mind, I would say that you'll be absolutely fine with the transition. Now, I think the biggest question that I always get asked is how I stay so organised and revised when I was in year 12. I made it very easy for myself when I went into year 12. I started making revision resources from day one. As soon as I had learnt some content, I made flashcards, I learnt the content, and I made sure that I understood it. And this definitely helped me in the long run. Buying separate ring binders for each subject also helped me organise my notes. Now, even if you don't look back on these notes, I would highly recommend you actually make notes. A lot of people say that if you're not going to look back on notes, don't make notes. It could not be more wrong. I found that it was super helpful to be writing something down in lesson. I felt like I was retaining the information more. Even if I didn't look back on these notes in like 2 or 3 months, it was just helpful that I had written something down. Also, finding the best way to revise for you is super important to find at the start of year 12, so that when it comes to doing mocks, you already know the best revision techniques for you. Active recall is definitely the best way that you can do this. So making flashcards, flirting with mind maps, especially if you do very content heavy subjects such as biology. Once you have found a way of revising that works for you, I would recommend sticking with it so it doesn't get too confusing when you are revising later on. I would also say that if you decide that flashcards are a good way of revising for you, I would so recommend you do them online, digitally. If you make a lot of flashcards, I think it's best to do them digitally because it saves you a lot of money and it's just easier to organise them. The only flashcards that I did physically were my big summary flashcards, and those just had a bunch of information on them that I tried to memorise. Staying organised at the start of sixth form is super helpful to you in the long run, so buying some kind of academic planner will definitely help you with this. I used the Pumpkin Productivity one, but you could definitely just use a basic notebook or even a digital one, as long as you have somewhere to write down your homework assignments, your test dates, and any other information that you need for your sixth form. Now, when it comes to class tests, I think a lot of people seem to think that they're completely irrelevant and you don't need to revise for them whatsoever. And I feel like they could not be more wrong, because if you revise for your in-class tests, it makes it so much easier when it comes to your mocks, and I'm going to explain how. So if you revise very well for these in-class tests, you know that you've got that content down and you know that you understand it and you can pinpoint your weaker areas. So when it comes to your mocks, you already know where your weaker areas are and you know where your strong points are. So you don't end up wasting your time revising your strong points when it comes to revising for mocks. Towards the end of year 12, you will probably have a set of year 12 mocks, and these can be super important for you in determining what areas are your weaker areas and your stronger areas. This will be your first kind of glimpse at sitting an actual A level, and it will get you into the mindset of how you would actually think when you are in an exam rather than just sitting an in-class test or revising in your bedroom. Doing past papers can be super helpful for mocks. It can be super useful because they give you an overview of the entire course, and obviously it can help with time management, especially if your subjects are very specific for time management, such as English. However, don't solely rely on these because they don't obviously have every single part of the specification in them. I would just use them to check your knowledge once you feel confident on a module. Now, I want to touch on work experience for a minute because a lot of people actually completely ignore this when it comes to starting sixth form. To my knowledge, the majority of year 12s will definitely want to gain some form of work experience because it can be so helpful when writing your personal statement and getting into university. And it may even be mandatory for your sixth form or college. In mine, it was definitely mandatory for us in year 12. If you have a clear idea of the field that you want to go into for a career, I would definitely recommend trying to get some work experience in that field. It is super useful for your personal statement. It can really bulk it out and it can really show that you're not just interested in the university course, but also the career that comes afterwards. I know that work experience in certain fields can be really hard to get a hold of, so I would definitely recommend asking family, friends, if anybody has any connections to anywhere that you can do work experience with. If you're doing work experience within the NHS that like I was, I would recommend doing a little bit of research on it first. I do usually get a lot of questions on how I gained my work experience and also where I did my work experience. I was very grateful to be able to do my work experience within a biomedical science lab within the NHS, and this really helped me figure out the specialties that I enjoyed and the specialties that I didn't necessarily want to go into. But overall, I really enjoyed being able to spend different times in different departments. I spent one day in histology, one day in microbiology, and then I spent my other 2 days in hematology and transfusions and biochemistry. I only did it for 4 days, but it was honestly such a great 4 days, and I would highly recommend getting work experience in a field that you enjoy. Again, with doing work experience in the NHS, usually you would apply through the NHS work experience website, and the NHS usually, to my knowledge, has a window where you can do your work experience, so a time frame that they give anybody who wants to do work experience. Now, depending on which department you're in, they may ask you to do a short online course beforehand in health and safety, especially if you are either working in the hospital or if you are working in labs or anywhere that contains diseases or chemicals. They will ask you to do a short online health and safety risk assessment just to make sure that you are up to date with all of that and to make sure that you are safe on your placement. Now, the next thing that I want to briefly talk about, and I'm not going to talk about it for too long because I don't know if every college or sixth form offers this, but I want to talk about the EPQ for a minute. Some sixth forms and colleges will offer it through a different exam board, but basically I wanted to talk about the EPQ because it can be so beneficial to your university application. To give you a very brief summary of what the EPQ is, it is a 5,000 word essay that you can write about anything that you want, and you research this and you do a presentation at the end. I did my EPQ on the different treatments for cystic fibrosis and the potential future treatments available from scientific developments such as stem cell transplants. I think the two biggest pieces of advice I can give to you when picking your EPQ topic is, one, picking a topic that you are going to enjoy, you're going to enjoy researching and that you find interesting. And number two, try the best that you can to pick a title that you can somehow work into your personal statement or somehow links to your course at uni if you know what you want to study. I managed to talk about mine in my personal statement and I managed to get 44 out of 50 overall in the EPQ, which secured me a grade A. Now, not all universities do accept the EPQ, so I would do a little bit of research beforehand, but if the universities that you're applying to do accept the EPQ, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they will reduce your offer by 1 grade if you get a certain grade in an EPQ. However, I would just say definitely check on your university's website and your university's course if they do this. The last thing that I want to talk about is universities and university courses. Now, this might not be on the forefront of your mind just yet, but year 12 will go by very, very quickly, and it will come to a point where you need to start thinking about applying to unis, which unis you want to apply to and what courses you want to apply to. If you are fortunate enough to know which universities and which courses you want to apply for, then you are great and you probably don't need to watch this part. However, if you don't, here are some of my tips on how you can figure that out and how you can choose your university course and the right university for you. The first thing, which I think is quite obvious, but do some research. Research different unis, research the different types of courses. There may even be some types of courses that you haven't actually heard of and realise, oh, that might be for me. Also have a think about the different types of careers that you might want to go into, because some careers do require a specific university degree, which they may need to be accredited by a certain organisation. As for universities, I would recommend going to a lot of open days. This can really help you get a sense of the university. Think about what kind of factors are the most important to you when it comes to university, whether the location is important to you, whether or not you want it to be a Russell Group uni, and also whether or not you want it to be a campus or a city uni. I knew from the start that I definitely wanted to go to a campus uni, so actually all 4 of my uni choices were campus unis. I hope this gives you a little bit of insight into sixth form and A-levels in general to anyone who is going into that next year, and hopefully that answered a lot of the questions that I frequently get about sixth form and A-levels in general. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have any more questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I will try my best to answer them the best that I can.